Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to have a bit of a discussion that I think has been brewing up in this game for quite a while. And that's going to be the idea, right, of character story quests. And the fact that a lot of individuals, at least publicly as you're seeing here on the Wuthering Waves subreddit page, a lot of people are asking for their return. Because one thing that's clear about the story of Wuthering Waves and the way that it's progressed from basically like version 2.2 onward is the fact that character quests have kind of been phased a little bit out of the story, and they're instead being built into the main story quest as a whole. And unfortunately, after several patches, several iterations, and different results from the various times that they've done this, a very popular sentiment right now is that this method isn't working. This method is not actually good, and this method is something, right, that probably should be changed for the future. People want the character quest back. They want their role in the main story to feel a little bit less personal and kind of like, you know, reserved for other sorts of content. And I think the realization over here, guys, is that this is a bit half-baked. And I'm going to be honest, I think that this is a little bit recency bias. Because when the past two versions of the game were essentially Wuthering Waves 2.8, where, let's be honest here, this entire quest is literally a Chisa story quest, and then Wuthering Waves 3.0, which, I'm going to be honest over here, the way that I viewed the Wuthering Waves 3.0 plot was that it was a great overarching story that felt like I was getting taken out of it in terms of pacing and flow because of the Lene backstory, right? All of this stuff, the background, all of that was woven into the quest, right? Even going so far as to kind of like, you know, be like that ultimate ending distraction right before the Academy gets attacked by a giant void worm, right? Like, this is clearly like a World Academy ending threat, and it's, you know, getting preceded by, oh, woe is me, I'm so sad. I think the abrupt pacing issues that resulted from her inclusion of her backstory into this quest was what had a lot of people critiquing parts of this quest and, of course, reigniting this discussion. But this is the truth that I think a lot of people haven't recognized. There are some quests in the game that, objectively, you can say that the inclusion of the character stories took away from the main plot. But there are other quests where the inclusion of the character's main story, like with this one, is what actually elevates the entire tale. When a story-significant unit that we've already gotten some level of exposure to, or gets great characterization and great relation to the main plot, gets their story quest woven into the main story, it's very good. Because you care a lot about what her background and her lore actually is, because she's integral, right, to Rover's past and basically the forming of Fraxidus, right, and like the story as a whole. You're interested inherently in knowing why she's like this, how she became like this, and what role Rover had in making her become like this, because she's important to the story. This is not important to the story. It's not. Because does 3.0 reasonably change at all if Lene's backstory is not in there? No. Fraxidus still attacks. This main problem, the main issue is still there. Lene's story is just like some extra flavor that ends up taking away from the main dish. It's like this whole story arc over here. Guys, this is a peanut butter jelly sandwich. Lene's backstory is a side of tartar sauce. Do you want tartar sauce with your peanut butter jelly sandwich? Hell no, you don't. But if the main story was fish and chips, oh, then maybe Lene's tartar sauce would be good. But no, the main story was not fish and chips. And that's the issue. Frolova's backstory was milk to go with the peanut butter jelly sandwich. That was 2.5's overall tale. Because what was the main conflict of 2.5? The gem, Fenrico, all of that. And then Frolova's backstory, where you find out why she's all fucked up like this, was the milk that helped break that sandwich down and made it easier to digest and chew and all that shit, right? What's this tartar sauce doing? It's making me want to spit the fucking sandwich out. I'm like, why the fuck is this even in here? It's like they're trying to make me care about her, but like she's not plot relevant because she's just some random merc from the new Fed who, like, she could have any background. It doesn't matter. She could have been like some homeless kid that grew up in like the streets of Jinzhou and had to like, it doesn't matter what her backstory is. That's the point. Tough upbringing into I'm free. I want to stay here. That's the story. Her background lore doesn't matter at all. We were baited into thinking she was Fraxidus, but that was like literally an accident. And so it's kind of just like, yes, you're going to want character story quests to be back in this circumstance. When it feels like the character story quest is not adding to the main story at all, and it feels like a distraction to the story. Do you want to know another character story quest that's a main story that is considered the best story in the history of the game? Oh, right. The Tangled Truth in the Inverted Tower. Isn't it fair to say that version 2.2's main story quest is just a Cartithia story quest? Is that fair to say? It is. Now, what about another Wuthering Waves story that's considered one of the best stories in the history of the game? That was also a character story quest. Oh, right. Y'all remember this one? And then y'all remember this scene over here? Hey, did anyone complain that this was a main story quest? Did anyone complain that this was in the main story? Oh, wait. No, you cared. Oh, you cared about Jinxie's backstory. Oh, you cared about her background. You cared what she was providing to the main lords of the game. And so, even though the main story quest is literally bogged down, right? Or just full of context surrounding Jinxie, you care because she's important. She's written in a way for you to care about her. What about 1.3? Shorekeeper. Same goddamn thing. Wuthering Waves has been doing character story quests as main quests since literally the launch of the game. They've done this since over a year ago. They started in June of 2024. What we're asking for over here is not to bring back character quests and just remove everything that we've had. I think it's more so bring back character quests for units where their backstory just isn't that relevant to the main fucking plot. And this is an unfortunate realization that I think some people are now starting to have about another very well-received quest in the history of WoW. Y'all remember version 2.7? Chimera and Galbraina's backstory didn't need to be in this quest. You did not need to spend 1+, 2+ hours talking about Chimera's backstory. It's not actually relevant, right? Do we need to know about her past and how she became the Discord Slayer? No, we don't. We didn't need to. We could have found that out later, and the pacing of the quest could have just been the finale, right? And then that entire sequence with Galbraina, kind of like when we enter Hell, right? When we enter Hell, this was the Galbraina story quest. And you can see it goes on, just her and Rover, for a very long time, about an hour. That's a situation where that could have been a story quest, right? And it wouldn't have taken away from the story. It probably would have actually helped the pacing. But then you have versions like, oh, I don't know, version 2.4. Wasn't this entire quest a Lupa story quest? But nobody gave a shit. Nobody said Lupa's story should have been separated out. You want to know why? Because her backstory had relevant plot significance that players were interested in hearing about. And so when they hear about the Silvas, when they hear about the Bow of Legions, when they hear about the gladiators and stuff, they care because she's main plot relevant. Why do you think nobody really gave a shit about her? Because we were never given a reason to. She initially was supposed to be tied to Fraxidus, right? I was like, oh my gosh, is she a secret double agent? Why is she looking like this? And then it's like, haha, just kidding. She's like some random person. Yeah, she's not actually Fraxidus. She's just like, she's actually legitimately, she found a dead Fraxidus person's body and then looted it and then found a letter to Star Torch Academy. It's like, this reminds me of like a ZZZ backstory. And from that perspective, I don't give a fuck about it. How does it really relate at all to anything that's been going on in the quest? Not really. And the thing is, when it's that out of place, right? This is gonna be the end result. People are gonna ask why that shit is in there. When nobody asked it for this update, nobody asked it for this update, nobody in their right mind even thought about it in this update, nobody thought about it here, and the only other place where people have brought it up is during the you-know part of this quest. But the thing about the you-know part of this quest is that at the very least, yeah, the second part felt like a you-know story quest, but at least I got lore about, like, hell, about fucking purgatory, right? And the fact that there's like an alternative dimension in Wuthering Waves that like people can like end up getting like fucking evaporated into. You got a fucking 2-minute cutscene and a red CG about the new Federation. It's not even slightly comparable. The amount of like underlying lore you learned about the universe in Wuwa at the very least in 2.6 with Yuno's quest. Oh, great. Oh, great. The new Federation, a big city, has slums in it. Bro, this changes nothing. It changes absolutely nothing. And so, yes, this whole take of bring back character quests, I think it's actually, when you take into account all the details, I think it is actually the right take, but it's with an asterisk. If it's a story relevant unit whose backstory is relevant to Rover, relevant to the actual main story, and players should be interested in hearing it, keep it in. Make it the main story, like you did with a Shorekeeper or a Jinsei or a Cartithia. And you want to know the perfect character to have that type of story for them? You already know. Do you think anyone's gonna give a fuck when the second half of 3.0 is focused on this unit and is this unit's character quest? Do you think anyone's gonna care? No. Because you care about her. You care about what role she played in Rover's past. Why is she in the Burning Protocol when only people they've seen before are in here? Why is a younger version of her that looks depressed and sad because he's leaving? This is him leaving Star Torch Academy. Why does she look like that? What role did he play in her life? It's similar to this. It's similar to this. It's similar to this. Why she got legs here but no legs over there? That's the thing, guys. If a character's gonna be like Lene, or God forbid, even a Galbrena, where their backstory feels relatively unrelated to the main story quest that's at hand, make it a story quest. Don't try to shove it into the main story like this and then end up with, okay, like, I don't fucking care about her because you're not actively putting in the story reasons to do it. But this unit, I don't know how you don't care. After seeing this cutscene, how do you not care about what role she's going to play? And now, we're going to get into the final part over here. So with the drop of the 3.0 main story quest, it's become abundantly clear that it's just a glorified character quest and I hate it. It sidelines other characters like Chisa, which I feel like should have been involved in 3.0 beyond that little optional bit. So this is the thing. Chisa's another character who unfortunately suffered from you either care or you don't, right? And unfortunately, when Chisa's entire quest is, I'm fucking lost. Here are all the reasons to feel bad for me. If you don't, the quest can't really land because it's her being trapped. Yeah, you're stuck with her for like 2 days and then you like get out. I think that this quest, where it has probably the least consequential impacts on the story, and that it's also entirely literally just a story quest, and the only main story relevance this quest has is to just go to the next region. The main point of 2.8 was to create a portal to Lahai Roi. That's essentially it. That's why the quest was there. Create a segue to Lahai Roi. And when that was the only purpose of a unit, and then you follow it up with another weak backstory, that kind of felt like it was just in there for flavor and not really main story significance, because let's be real here, right? Does this place being Honami City have any significance at all? No, they just wanted to put a fucking Japanese schoolgirl in the game. That was the reason why it didn't have to look like this, right? And then it seems like, hey, the only reason this backstory was in here was so that they could like give a reason for why Lene is like so colorful and like this. A lot of it does end up feeling a little bit unnecessary to actually maximize the quality of the plot. And I think in a lot of situations, Kuro can have their cake and eat it too. 2.5, 2.6 first half, 2.2, 1.1, 2.4. These feel like situations where Kuro got to have their cake and eat it as well. They got to put their character story quest into the main story and then have people like it. But you've clearly seen the instances where, and the reasons for why people dislike parts of those quests. It's just when the character's backstory is not relevant to the main plot and it is forced into the main plot. And every time that happens is when people are going to get upset with character story quests being in the story. And the less that Kuro does that, I think the better the story is going to go. And once again, that's why I can't stop talking about how excited I am for the second half of 3.0, because I genuinely think it is going to take this take that I've had and just completely 100% validate it so that the audience can finally understand. The problem is in character story quests, it's trying to make every character into a main story quest, when some characters should not have that classification. It came to Lene's actual role in the 3.0 story. She kind of started off as this glorified tour guide, right? Who is taking you around town, showing you all the new spots, all the new utilities, features, all of that. Imagine if during the 2.0 story, when we were in Renacida, all this good stuff, our tour guide was Zani. Imagine if during the 2.0 quest, while we're on this journey, we're taking down the Sentry Construct, right? We're meeting up with Rosia and Brant to go, like, take down Frolova and all of this. Imagine if we got sidetracked by hearing about how Zani is, like, a hard-working office worker that, like, has dozens of sleepless nights and, like, constantly has to drink coffee and, like, all of these troubles and stuff while we're in the middle of, like, dealing with this at the Carnival. Right before we deal with this at the Carnival, Zani goes into like a 10-minute monologue about like how tired she is all the time. That would probably fuck up the pacing, right? That would probably fuck up the pacing of this quest, right? That's exactly what people are saying when they're talking about Lene taking away from 3.0's main plot. Because we're dealing with a giant fucking worm that's about to blow up the city, right? We're dealing with a giant fucking worm and like she's out here reminiscing about this shit. Like, let me know what you all thought. Peace out.